So these are the FREEWELL and ND filters for the DJI Mini 2. Let me explain to you why you might consider buying these filters for yourself. But before that, I want to mention something. FREEWELL sent me these filters completely for free for a video review, but this video is not sponsored. Here on the right, I have the long exposure filter kit for the DJI Mini 2, and inside we have the ND1000 and ND2000, but unfortunately, I'm not really going to focus on these filters in this video because I barely do long exposure photography, especially with a drone. But if you want to do long exposure photography, you can do so with these filters, and it will cost you $29 US. Now here on the left, I have the 8 filter kit pack, and inside we have 8 ND filters, 8 filters in total. Here we have the regular ND filters. It goes from ND4, ND8 and ND16. And here we have the normal polarizer filter, CPL filter. And then here at the bottom, these are all the hybrid filters. So basically ND filters and CPL filters all in one. And it goes from ND8, 16, 32 and 64 for super bright conditions. And this filter kit will cost you $99 US. Now let me take one of the filters out just to show you the build quality. Everything feels really premium. I've already used FREEWELL filters before, and I know they have really great build quality, and this one is no exception. Everything is metal, like I said. The polarizer wheel is going really smoothly. All right, now let me finally show you how to attach these filters to your drone. So first of all, you have to make sure that your drone is off, because otherwise the gimbal will get locked and it will be very hard to mount the filters on the gimbal. Then I'm gonna take one of the filters, tilt the camera downwards, hold it with one finger like that, because it's much easier to do it like that. And then I'm going to mount the filter, and that's it. Very simple. Okay, now I'm going to turn on the drone. And as you can see, the gimbal is not going crazy, not vibrating. If your gimbal is vibrating or just moving around very fast, that means you haven't mounted the filters correctly. Now let me briefly explain to you why would you want to use ND filters on your DJI Mini 2. So if you want to achieve the most natural motion blur effect in your footage with any camera for that matter, you'll have to use ND filters. How you achieve the most natural cinematic motion blur effect in your footage is by putting the shutter speed double the frame rate. So if you're shooting at 25 frames per second like I am right now, you're gonna put the shutter speed 1/50. If you're shooting in 30 FPS, you're gonna put the shutter speed 1/60, and so on and so forth. Now if you're gonna put the shutter speed double the frame rate without using an ND filter, your footage is going to be overexposed. For example, right now I'm filming at 25 frames per second with this camera that I'm using right now, and I'm using an ND filter to bring down the exposure. Because if I'm going to remove the ND filter, as you can see, everything is overexposed. I'm going to bring down, put back the ND filter, and now I can dial in the exposure with my ND filter to get perfect exposure, but at the same time to keep the shutter speed double the frame rate for the most natural motion blur effect. Now CPL filters. With CPL filters you'll be able to reduce reflections from water and also from windows. So if you're shooting in a location where there is a lake, a river, or maybe an ocean, and you want to see through the water, and at the same time you want to reduce the reflections, you'll have to use CPL filters. And also if you're shooting maybe skyscrapers and you want to see through the windows of the skyscrapers, you'll be able to, with the CPL filter, you'll be able to remove the reflections or reduce them drastically to see through the window, which is very cool. And also one more thing that's cool about CPL filters on drones, they make the sky more blue and make the sky pop a little bit more, which is also very cinematic. Okay, now let me show you a couple of tests. I want to show you how the footage from the DJI Mini 2 looks like without using ND filters, and then how it looks like with using ND filters. Is there a big difference between using an ND filter on the DJI Mini 2 or not using an ND filter? In my personal opinion, there is a big difference, especially if you're going to fly your drone very fast. You can definitely see a big difference in the motion blur. The motion blur looks much more natural with using the ND filters. And also, to my surprise, these filters from FREEWELL are pretty color accurate. I use the same white balance when using the ND filters on the Mini 2 and when not using the ND filters, and the colors looked pretty much the same to me. No color shifts, nothing, everything looked pretty much the same to me. So that means even if you're going to mount these filters on your drone, the colors are still going to be fairly accurate. So to conclude this video, if you want to make your footage from your DJI Mini 2 a little bit more cinematic, definitely consider getting the FREEWELL ND filters. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace out.